but we'll go ahead and get the January 28th FARGODOME Authority meeting called to order. First order of business would be to approve the minutes, or approve the agenda. There are no additions or changes to the agenda. I will
So move, Mr.
the
Chair.
motion to
Second.
approve. Motion from David, second from Mike. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Now onto the minutes from December 9th. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment to look through it.
I move to accept December minutes as presented.
Thank you, David.
Second.
Second from Mike. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes approved. Old business. Do we have any old business? Hearing none. Move on to new business and turn it over to Rob for the general manager's report.
All right, real briefly, we'll start on page 3, which is November financials. The month of November, it was about 71,000 below budget. The net surplus of 39,000 compared to a budgeted surplus of 110,000. Primarily, the Dakota Bowl was slightly down in attendance, so it affects the ancillary revenues. We had a theater show. How it falls this year, it's 1 in 2019, and well, now only 2, but it's going to be 3 in 2020. So we ran through that budgeted theater show, and then NDSU with good attendance, but earlier leaving since both of those games were kind of blowouts, but that's understandable. So that affects the revenue sources that FARGODOME benefits from, which are parking and food and beverage per caps. Any questions on the November financials? Hearing none, then we'll move just right to page 12, which is the year end. So again, we'll go over December, which is on the left half of the page, the month, and then the year end. So for the month, we had a net deficit of about 13,000. However, that was about $85,000 above the net budgeted deficit of $98,500. Obviously, the largest piece of that is we do not budget NDSU playoff games, and they did have 3 again, so you can see that with a net contribution of about $190,000. Cirque Holidays, the theater show in December, was about $12,000 below budget. Attendance was lower, ticket revenues were lower. On the trade show side, the egg show was about $10,000 below budget, mainly due to higher expenses converting the building over. We were very busy at that time, as well as less equipment build out or ancillary revenues such as vendors buying internet or the utilities expenses, things such as that. On the expense side for December, then the labor, with the year end through the city comes year end vacation, accruals, and different things such as that. So that causes us to be over budget, along with we had a lot of turf work on the football turf. The concessions contract with the 3 playoff games, obviously that's the payment to NDSU. And then on the operations side, because of where the year was coming in, we had more purchases we took out of operating for a lot of event operating supplies rather than shifting them over to capital. And then the management fees for food and beverage, again, because of the non-budgeted football games, increases in higher revenue there. Any questions on the month of December? All right, final year end then. On the right-hand side, we had a total of 109 public event dates with attendance of 535,000. We're about 51,500 above our budgeted attendance of 483,600. We had total event income of just shy of $2,968,000, or about $85,000 above our budgeted $2,883,000. We had indirect expenses of just over $4.22 million compared to a budget of about $4,070,000. So for the year of 2019, we ended up with a net surplus of just about $455,500, or just over $76,500 above our budget. Our budgeted surplus of $378,700. So a pretty favorable year, everything considered. We could talk about the events, if you will, the event income comments. You can see how the concerts through the 6 budgeted ended up just about $1,300 below budget, which is pretty good. However, if you take into account, I think there was closer to 9 shows with the Miranda Lambert, the Slayer, and the Marilyn Manson. Rob Zombie shows didn't necessarily sell as we were anticipating, but we did have a lot of great shows. Shine Down early in the year, obviously Pink, Casting Crowns, and then Celine Dion. So we had a very wide variety of concerts this year. On the NDSU side, again, NDSU events finished above budget because of not budgeting for the 3 playoff games. Family shows had a strong family show year. Had a busy family show year with storms centering around our Disney on Ice and everything, so a lot of people put in there, but had a good year. The theater continues to be a struggle, particularly the Broadway shows as far as attendance. What's out on tour, what's available. We try to get the best that can come here with our partner Jam Productions. But we've seen waning attendance there, so there'll be some pretty strong consideration of what should be continued, if it should be continued, moving forward. With that particular, it puts a lot of stress on the building, shuts us down, creates a couple of days, 2 to 3 days of going out into it and out of it and doing the event. And when you really look at it, it is another type of event to have in a building such as this, but at some point in time you have to look at is it a possible exercise in futility?
Is it always a 6 event season, or
it really depends upon what's available, and our subscriber base has decreased each year, and it's understandable. The last 3-4 years we've had a lot of challenges. Weather challenges have canceled a show like Kinky Boots here this past year, but the touring Broadway industry seems to be a little, not the right term, and if anybody hears it they'll scream bloody murder at me, but I'd say financially sketchy. We've had a couple of shows last year kind of just lose their investors and came off the road a month early. This year for the show that was going to be in February, another Once was the show, lost their investors and pulled the show off the road in mid-December and canceled the rest of their season. And the issue is that it doesn't appear to me to be being corrected by the agents or the show producers out there. And so it's one of those that just, you can only cancel shows so many times in a season where people just kind of say, well, I guess you're putting a 4 or 5 show season up, but you're really only going to have 3 or 4 of those 4 or 5. So it's something we're looking at from a dollar, a business sense.
So that's why you think your subscribers are off.
I think that plays a role. Let's be brutally honest. An 18,500 seat indoor football arena isn't the best.
That's what I would say.
Isn't the best Broadway show, touring Broadway show venue, but it's the venue right now that accommodates, without making a significantly huge investment in another facility. It accommodates bringing it in, but at some point in time, this Fargo Moorhead market has become very inclined to drive to Minneapolis, St. Paul like we're driving to Hillsboro. So they're more apt to go to that. The trade shows, some were weather affected, some attendance a little down a little bit here and there, but generally finished pretty good. Festival was with Happy Harry's Rip Fest having the weather event for the year. Amateur sports was a very strong year. Had a lot of great events with that, along with convention and miscellaneous with Fight the Frost. Sanford Health had one of their galas here. The Junior Classical League came in; those weren't budgeted. Strong events from all the others with the Kiwanis Pancake Carnival, Fargo Marathon, high school graduations, health tech trade. So a good year for that. Monster Jam Motorsports had a decent year. The professional sports with the WWE coming in was not budgeted. So overall, still, a very, very positive year event-wise, a very busy year event-wise. When you look at 109 public events,
Yeah, amen.
that means easily pushing 200, 250 days of activity inside the facility when you factor in football practices, building changeovers, days that just aren't available because we're getting out of an event and setting up for theater, or tearing the theater down, or 4 days of bringing dirt in for Monster Jam or rodeo or different things such as that. So overall, a very, very busy and good year.
WWE is not an annual event, correct?
It seems to
kinda
be,
has
it
been,
seems to
but-
want to be an annual event, but I think personally in this part of the country, they seem to be in that's another peaks and valleys genre of event, and they seem to be in a valley right now as far as attendance. However, they have gotten efficient with their touring and been able to put a show on with minimal expense to them, I believe. And obviously they have their TV brand, and so they're out on the road supporting their TV brands that they have out there. So as long as we have dates open and they want to keep coming back, we'll definitely bring them back. But it is not something that we ever include in
Right.
our annual budgeting to say, okay, we're going to have
Right.
that type of a show.
Thanks.
Questions on any of the financials?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the November and December financials as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call. David.
So roll call, Nancy,
Yes.
Rich,
Yep.
Mike,
Yes.
Troy,
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Blake.
Yes.
All right, moving on with report past events, page 22 since our last meeting, which it always is a long time ago, December 9th. I know we talked about some of these upcoming and different events already, but since our meeting on Monday the 9th, we were just setting up for Cirque Dreams Holidays. We had that show on the 11th. As the previously spoke, then on the 14th and the 21st of December, playoff games against Illinois State and Montana State. And then right after Christmas, on the 26th, Rumble on the Red started setting up and had the workouts and everything going on, and then they had their tournament on the 27th, 28th, and 29th. Last year there was that Christmas storm that hurt the front end of that event and delayed people getting in, so the event started a little later. This year the storm was a little after Christmas and hurt the back end of the event. However, we had a lot of contact Thursday, Friday, Saturday with we were here and had the contact and with the tournament, even with the weather as is, all the teams and the kids that were wrestling on Sunday were basically here on Friday, and the other ones came in Saturday morning before it got even worse. And so they just said, no, we want to wrestle. We're here. We'd rather have our 15-year-old, 12 and unders wrestling and getting rid of the energy versus destroying 6 hotel rooms. So they went on with the wrestling. So that finished off the year on a good note. Moving right into 2020, we had Fight the Frost, which is the event that our staff created along with Games Galore, and so they moved in and set up on Thursday the 9th and had the event on the 10th, 11th, and 12th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then the following weekend, Paw Patrol was here Thursday night. We loaded in on Friday the 17th with the shows again on the 18th and the 19th. Again, dealing with the winter storm. I guess actually it was a true blizzard on the Saturday. But again, it's a touring show. The show was here. There was no state of emergency or things called. Obviously, no travel advisories were out. Interstates closed down. However, this is a theater set, smaller show. Well, 1,500 per show. A lot of that comes from in town, and in town traffic could still move around. But again, our finance, marketing, and ticket office staff did a fantastic job working with the show. Took a lot of calls. I think over 400, at least over 400 on those ones who couldn't get here Saturday. The majority of them got here on Sunday, and were able to exchange their tickets for the Sunday shows, or V-Star Entertainment, which is the promoter, was working with them. They've got an upcoming Trolls live show in Grand Forks later in March. They've got a Paw Patrol in Bismarck in April, and a couple shows in Minneapolis, St. Paul that they could also exchange tickets for as well. So overall, I would say for Paw Patrol, based on the feedback from my colleagues and that, the calls were generally much more positive than Disney on Ice a year ago, and the patron comments when they were in were generally much more positive, and hey, thanks for still making the show happen, thanks for the accommodations, and again, I think it was more so they were just worried that the 3-year-old was going to destroy the house versus let him come and kick the concrete wall at the FARGODOME. But a good event overall. Then this past week, it had the Red River Valley Boat and Marine Show. They moved in on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, with the show Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Decent traffic. I talked to some vendors on Friday. They said it was a little slow, but again, it's always a question of if it's the right people, they don't really care if they get the right leads or the right sales. So you could have purchased some very expensive boats if you wanted to, or some normal stuff and get the leads. Any questions on past events from the group? A lot of events, which takes us up to today, and you may hear the trucks banging, so the dirt's coming in today for the Monster Jam, and that'll be Friday night and Saturday afternoon. This weekend, the dirt will actually get cleaned up Saturday evening, Sunday. It's probably a good thing we have the Super Bowl on the Sunday. It's that Sunday evening that the drivers want to get their stuff cleared out and get out of here so they can get home and watch that. North Dakota Soybean Council will move in on Monday, have their soybean expo on Tuesday the 4th in the arena this year, as well as meeting rooms. Right after that, they'll flip over to the Gate City Theater, and we'll host an American in Paris on Thursday the 6th, pull everything down, and have Jason Aldean on Saturday the 8th. Then run right into NDSU Career Center for their main spring career expo, if you will, on Tuesday and Wednesday the 11th and 12th. The 13th, they'll be up in the meeting rooms doing interviews while the Pancake Carnival, Kiwanis Pancake Carnival, starts moving in, and we have that on the 15th. That'll clear out. We'll be closed on Monday the 17th for President's Day, and State High School Wrestling will start moving in on that Tuesday and Wednesday, and that they'll wrestle all day Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the 20th to the 22nd, which takes us to the next meeting on February 25th, Tuesday, which is the day the home show starts moving in. So, as you can see, January took the first weekend off, and we went, and we keep going, and we'll be going nearly every weekend through Memorial Day and into June as well. Questions from the group?
Thanks, Rob. We'll move on to committee reports. Building and Finance met. Blake, you mind giving that?
Yeah, so for Building and Finance, there for the insurance update, we had Ryan Hoffman and Dan Armbrust came in from Dawson and talked about liability insurance. As you may have read, with just the past events of active shooter situations in public arenas and terrorism type stuff, that the cost of that insurance has skyrocketed. So back in 18, we had a primary limit of 10 million, and we had an excess liability layer of 5 million. 19, we bumped that up with the primary of 10, and then we added excess of 15, so a total of 25. Back then, the cost per million was about $1,000. Now it's $4,500 per million or higher. So Building and Finance approved to go back to the kind of the 2018 limits, to have the primary of 10 and have the 5 million layer for a cost of like $22,500, which I think we have 15 grand room in the budget.
Yep.
So it's $7,000-8,000 over budget, or 7,000 to 10,000 over. I don't know, the city was gonna go back, and were they gonna talk about it as well?
I think they'll talk about more in a general discussion, but nothing to do with,
Yeah.
with the decision reached at the committee level for the authority.
So, yeah, so from $1,000 to 4,500, it sounds every year we'll see increases as well, so. Any questions on that, insurance? B, we heard the financials, and then just the ticketing RFP update. Susan gave an update. We had 4 companies respond to the ticketing RFP, so just currently evaluating those, set up interviews shortly. And then Rob gave an update that we're working with RLE right now. Potential upgrades to the backstage area. More to come on that, but working with RLE. And then Susan just talked about the economic impact study is close to being done. Probably have a summary report completed here in February, and then more detailed in March and April. So that would include conclude building and finance. Make a motion to approve.
So moved.
So roll
Motion.
call on that, Nancy,
Yes.
Rick,
Yep.
Mike,
Yes.
Troy,
Yes.
David.
Yep.
Blake.
Yes.
Thanks, Blake. Rob, you have a couple capital reallocation requests.
Yeah, just, you may or may not recall that when we were setting the 2020 capital budget in May and June of this past year, we didn't specifically, or I did not specifically include an architectural services line item for 2020. As we continue to work through not only the backstage, which is the dressing rooms, catering areas, and the hallway in that area, with RL for some upgrades there that wouldn't be affected really by the overall building stuff as we continue to work through that. We said, okay, there's some other dollars that could be reallocated when necessary, and so we're getting close to that time. So I would just request that we a reallocation of $100,000 from the existing video board project account, which is FD 1614. If you recall, those bonds were sold at for $7.5 million in bond proceeds, and we're paying that back on an annual basis, 10-year basis, so that money is still there. And reallocate that into the Architectural Services FD 1902 account. That would still leave over $300,000 in the video board project account, as we talked about using that for some possible signage, different things such as that, or if desired by the board, instead of as we move forward with this potential project of the dressing room catering area, that would be outside of the existing budget, so it'd be asking for additional funds out of the surplus. We might want to use some of that to fund that, because that project is coming together. It looks very nice. They're still looking at it as like my comments before, they make a lot of money in the arena from ticket sales and such, the artists do, but sometimes the make or break is what they see or experience backstage. And with those areas not being really touched for 21 years, other than a fresh coat of paint and some updated furniture, just kind of bring it into a little area. And I think it'd be beneficial. Maybe at the February meetings, we'll take a walk down there, and you can see what it looks like, and then we can show the pretty pictures. But that if we do everything that Ingebretson is proposing, and I will point out that some of it actually has to do with energy efficiencies, since the world continues to move to LED. Since we're going into there and affecting lighting, it's switching all that area into LED lights. So there is a portion of that project that would involve that, but it will likely be in that 1.3-ish, 1.4 million to do all those areas. You finish it with a little higher end finishes, so the square footage cost is at $200 to $225 a square foot with tiling and different things such as that. So
Does that include the catering kitchen? Is that what you're?
that does not include the catering kitchen. No.
The space itself.
No, it'd be outside of that. So it'd be right next to it. That we already have money budgeted into. There's actually going to be some further discussion on that to get ahead of myself. If people are okay with or want to talk about the reallocation request first, I'd be happy to talk more on the
So is there a
catering
motion
kitchen.
to reallocate the 100,000 from the video board to architectural services?
So moved.
A motion from Nancy,
Second.
second from Blake. Roll call.
Nancy?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Troy?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Blake?
Yes.
With regards to the catering kitchen, we have that money budgeted, I believe, $150,000 for equipment. We know going into it that doesn't do the whole thing. However, we are in the process, finished up interviews and trying to work through potential hiring of a suite catering manager. And as we were going through the process and also talking with Ingebretson through the overall building potential changes, if you recall in 2000 when the lobby addition was put on, that southern side of that was made as designed to be able to be a potential catering kitchen. Never used, sinks were put into there, but it's a storage area. And so that would be one of the areas that they're looking at potentially. We'd like to get the candidate on board, but then also we started looking at just outside of the concessions, the food and beverage offices on the lower level on the north end, what's considered our prep room right now. That might be an area, depending upon if we can get ductwork through all the other 30 years of ductwork, for a hood system, that maybe it would go right there and allow the efficiencies of having your entire food and beverage operation right next to each other, plus on the end of the building that's got a freight elevator that gets up to the second level as well. So that's another project that will be using some of these funds that we just you just reallocated to having Ingebretson look at
What's
as well.
the space that is in the field level west concourse where they
The catering area now?
Is that what it's called? Catering area, catering kitchen?
Yeah, I mean, that was a storage area
Right.
in 1993 that in 1997 we turned over into a kind of a green room backstage place for them to eat. It was redone in 2000 after the flooding situation, but really has not been touched other than I think one coat of paint and a couple of wall patchings. And so it's just more to bring it into the
21st century.
2020s versus 1990s expectations. So, and again, we continue to work with Ingebretson on the overall plan, vetting potential financing methods for that, and some of these other projects that we've talked about really aren't affected by the big changes. The one is the catering area could be affected. So, but those two will come out kind of simultaneous, I think. That's all I have on that.
Any questions for Rob on that?
Good work.
Are there additional items today? If not, we're adjourned.